Hello everyone, Dibz here, and today we're going to be doing a quick review and unboxing of the new Aorus M2. Now this is currently Aorus's newest mouse, and I was eager to see what it was all about because of how different it looks from the other mice in the series. So let's just get this open. So at first glance, this looks like a pretty simple and clean look from Aorus, which I'm not really used to. I mean, just looking at the mouse right now, it's pretty minimalistic in a good kind of way actually. It's not too flashy, and it's flat compared to the M3 and the M5 that I've used. Anyway, let's compare it to the actual size. It's definitely smaller in length, so for me, that might be a little bit of a downside because I have big hands, which is about, they're about 8 inches in full length, but I think this will be pretty standard for others. You can also see that the M2 does not have the curvature on the mouse buttons for comfort like the M5 does, so it's not as comfortable as the M5, but it definitely still feels okay. Overall though, the M2 is a pretty thin mouse, and you can see that it's short also in overall height. While if you look at the M5, it has a big hump for those who have bigger hands like me. Alright, now we're moving on to the wire, and it's the same type of wiring as the M3 and M5, which I actually have a small problem with. It's tough and actually hard material, so it makes it pretty inflexible. Based on my experience with the M5 and M3, the cable can sometimes become creased and end up bumping into your fingers and your mouse, and it's kind of weird, especially when you have a crowded desk. As you can see, it's pretty rigid, and when you're gaming, it may get caught on things and create some drag. So overall, it just doesn't look good. I'd honestly really like to see a bit of a softer type of cable in the future from Aorus for more flexibility. Alright, so what's cool about this mouse is that there are buttons on both sides. This makes it completely ambidextrous, so for those of you guys who like to use your left hand for your mice, you're in luck. It's probably not a really big population, but you know, it's there. The shape fits both hands comfortably, and there are 2 buttons on each side in the same positions. Technically, you could use all 4 buttons with one hand, but it'd be a little weird to push those buttons with your middle, fourth, or your pinky finger. I'd probably never use my left hand for the mouse, but it does seem to work just fine. It's got a Dpi button that allows you to set 4 different Dpi settings that you can also cycle through. And this is for those who care about how the mouse wheel feels and sounds like. It's pretty quiet, doesn't have a lot of resistance, but it doesn't freely spin. Here's how the left click sounds, and the right click. You don't need a lot of force for the mouse clicks, and they also have a large range of activation, so you can use both palm and claw grip styles, whichever one you like. The mouse buttons are also arm run switches, so that means they have a 50 million click lifespan, and they make it pretty versatile. Next, we're going to talk about something that has been common in their previous mice, and it's this rattling that they have when you shake them. So here, watch. Listen to the M5. You hear that? It's both of the mouse buttons on the side and the mouse wheel making all that noise. Now to me, it's not entirely a big deal because I don't really hear or notice it when I'm gaming with the M5 or the M3, but it could potentially be a cause to certain problems down the road if they arise, such as loose mouse parts, sensor problems, or malfunctioning mouse buttons. Now take a listen to the M2. It seems like whatever that was making the noise in the previous mice is now fixed or gone, and that's really good news. I'll use the mouse for a while and see if there are any problems with the M2 in the future, and I'll check back in if anything comes up. Now onto the performance. It's got an optical sensor capable of 220 inches per second and 30G acceleration. So it's a little bit slower than the M5, which sits at 400 IPS and 50G acceleration. Not too big of a difference, but it's there. And note that the M2 does not come with extra feed pads like the M5 does, so there isn't as much customization. Now besides the height difference, you can definitely notice the difference in the width of the mice. Here's a direct comparison from the top, and it's actually a pretty big difference. So if you've liked the size of the M5 or the M2 may take a bit to get used to. But unless you have a largely oversized hand, it should be comfortable to hold. Alright, now let's compare the weight. The M2 weighs in at 2.8 ounces, and that converts to 79 grams. And the M3 weighs in at 3.7 ounces, and that converts to 105 grams. And the M5, the heaviest out of all of them, it weighs in at 4.3 ounces, and that converts to 122 grams. So as you can see, this is an insane difference to what they are normally offering in this line of the product. And that's actually a really nice change. For me, this is going to be interesting because I've always used heavy mice, such as the Logitech G602, which was 152 grams. And I've always just gotten used to it. So we're gonna have to see how things go with a much lighter mouse this time around. Overall, the M2 looks pretty damn sleek, as I really like the matte black style of color. It's not overly reflective, and it also has a nice shine to it like the M3 and M5. From what I see here, there are only two types of material to it, the matte black material and a similar matte black material with a little bit more resistance to it for a nice grip. This is all around the lower base of the mouse, while the M3 and M5 actually have a rubber grip on the side, which I personally like more for comfort. Alright, so I've been using the M2 for about a week now, and all in all, I feel like the M2 outshines both the M3 and M5 in price. It's only $30 compared to $40 for the M3 and a whopping $70 for the M5. If you're looking for a good performing mouse that's super light, the M2 is pretty damn affordable in regards to other light gaming mice such as the $50 G Pro or the $135 eSports grade one. Of course, if you have the money, feel free to go for it, but as far as I play, I haven't had any spinouts or noticed any big difference or problems with the sensor. Overall, for a much smaller mouse that I'm used to, it's pretty damn solid. Next, the M2 outshines the M3 and M5 in simplicity. There's not a ton of parts to the mouse as you can see, unlike the M5, and it's very clean and simple. The M5 seems to go pretty over the top with all of the design and the extra materials put into it and lighting, and it definitely markets to a different type of customer who really likes to show off cool effects. And obviously, people who use Aorus products is really common for their products as well. Now, the M2 does offer Rgb Fusion 2.0 like the M5 and M3, but there aren't nearly as many effects on the M2 itself. So the M2 would be good for those who like to keep things a little bit more on the simple side. However, I feel like the M2 lacks in one area where the M3 and M5 outclass it, and that is the comfort of the mouse. For the M5 and M3, there's rubber grips on the sides, the mouse is thick, and the grooves on the mouse buttons make it almost seem as if you're not even holding the mouse at all, as if it were just an extension of your hand. Now, you hear me say this a lot, and a lot of times people say that the comfort and feel of the mouse is the most important aspect when choosing the right one, and I honestly do agree up to a certain extent. I'd consider the M5 a luxury purchase for those who like bigger mice and have trouble finding the perfect comfort, because the M5 offers all of that. But it does come with a heavy price, of course. I definitely recommend the M2 for those who are looking for a smaller and simpler mouse, especially because it is less than half of the price of the M5, depending on what you're looking for. Again, both come with Rgb Fusion 2.0, which allow you to sync up your mouse lighting effects with other peripherals, as well as other computer parts if applicable. It's easy to use, and you can just download it from the Aorus website for free. Anyway, that's my review of the Aorus M2. Let me know what you guys think about it and how it compares to the other Aorus mice in their product line, as well as any other mice out there. I'll be doing a little bit more testing for the next few weeks and check back in with you guys and see what I find. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.